What's up, fans and gamers alike? This is Josh Rockstark, and we're back with part 2 of our Crash Bandicoot series Ultimate Review. We have 5 more games to cover, and if you haven't checked out the last video, it covered games 11 to 6, and I highly recommend you check it out first. If you have, let's jump right into number 5. Hope you enjoy, and welcome to the Retrospectacle. Number 5. Back in the day, I had experienced the original Crash Bandicoot sometime after playing Crash 2 and 3, and it left me with a lukewarm experience. First, I had to get used to the fact that I couldn't play using the analog sticks. Combined with that, the game was a lot harder than I was used to. I always think back to people who bought their PlayStation 1 and that game together, and wonder how they fared playing the game. It can be brutal at times. So did they end up finishing it, or did they give up somewhere along the way? It's not an experience for the faint of heart. I beat Cortex, but that's where I parted ways with the game because I didn't want to endure anymore. The original title was a frustrating experience to me. Fast forward to present day where I got to play it again as part of the Insane trilogy, and boy did I enjoy the heck out of it this time. The quality of life changes that the remaster brought to the game gave me a new perspective on the title. Having played the game with you guys on the Twitch channel, I came to appreciate how much thought was put into the level design. I have always dreaded playing levels like Slippery Climb, The High Road, and Sunset Vista because of the amount of precision required to beat them, but this time around I loved every second of it. The experience is still hard as balls, arguably made harder by rounded polygons, but it's still rewarding. The game requires you to beat some of the levels without dying to collect certain gems or access previously inaccessible areas. Collecting the red gem in Slippery Climb and the green gem in the Lost City were so damn rewarding. Through practice and struggle, I got good enough to master these levels. Wow, it really is the Dark Souls of platformers. After a good amount of time with the game, I realized that the vast majority of the jumps you had to make were not just leaps of faith, but well thought out platforming by the geniuses at Naughty Dog. The proof is in the pudding, as they say. When you play through the high road level, you will have to alternate between long jumps and short jumps to make it safely to the platform and subsequent jump. Everything bland. Some of the hardest jumps in the game can be found in Slippery Climb, where creativity and variance in your jumps will get you impaled by spikes, or you'll be falling down the castle wall. Again, it's thanks to the quality of life changes that Vicarious Visions added to the game that allowed me to appreciate these things. Vicarious Visions also added parity in all 3 games when it came to adding the time relics. These challenges are an even bigger test of skill, as now you have to nail these levels without dying under a time limit. To get the platinum trophy for the game, you're gonna need to get gold on every stage. Good luck to you. Also, a great addition is the opportunity to play as Coco. She plays exactly like Crash, but has her own personality and even her own version of the Crash dance. It's subtle things that make all 3 remasters so great. Vicarious Visions was able to take what was already done so well and subtly make them better, like the level motifs. Vicarious Vision brought all the levels to life, and added a layer of depth to each level that was much needed. Granted, there's 20 years of tech improvements, but the team went the extra mile to make this game look jaw-dropping. The game is not without its problems left over from the original game. In an attempt to preserve the originals, they did not try to update or change things. I get that, but still the boss fights are pitifully easy. Always have been. The Cortex fight presents a little bit more challenge, but once you memorize this pattern, you can sleepwalk all over that fight too. This was a development choice, to preserve the originals, so I don't fault them too much for that. There are a couple spots of jank in the level design that couldn't have been ironed out, like the depth perception in levels like Toxic Waste with the bouncing barrels, or jumping on the spikes in Slippery Climb with an Aku mask, and having to sit there waiting to die with no chance to get back on the platform. One problem of the remaster's own making involves the rounded polygons mentioned earlier. In the transition from original to remaster, the polygons went from being square to round, forcing you to be more precise with your jumps. This led to jumps where you felt like you should have made it, or could have made it in the PS1 original. It's a little frustrating and unforgiving. Despite that, I loved the remastered version of this game. and I finally understand why the series took off the way it did. I would have put it higher on my list, but not only is the competition getting pretty tough, but I'm also taking into consideration the PS1 classic. Ranking number 5 is still a feat for the game. Remember that it pioneered the series and subsequent games got the chance to iterate on the gameplay. For me personally, I am just really happy with the overall experience. No other Crash game has ever given me the sheer sense of accomplishment that I felt playing this game, and that's a truly spectacular feeling. Number 4. Ah, that's better. John, this puts a smile on my face.
The check bounced. Are you sure? Well, the past few years have kind of been slow. Wrath of Cortex didn't do as well as we'd hoped, and... Fish?
It's a smile that lasted throughout my playthrough of Crash Twinsanity because of how excellent the game is. The game controls great, it's funny and charming, the music is as great as it's ever been, and the level design is top notch. These are the things that make a great Crash game. Traveler's Tales Oxford nailed it this time to give us the series' most underrated experience. I am a huge advocate for this game, and let's jump into what makes this game so good. Let's start talking about the story and characters. Simply put, they nailed it. Traveler's Tales Oxford gave the overall series a much needed dose of context. What I mean is that Cortex is just as much the star of this game as Crash is, and we get a deep look at his backstory. This direction really fleshed out the Crash lore in a good way. With the places you explore and the gut-busting cutscenes, Traveler's Tales Oxford was able to tell a great story in a way that you can't tell in a warp room. The story starts with Cortex trying to lure and destroy Crash, business as usual. But quickly a new threat finds them, and for the first time in the series, Crash and Cortex will have to work together. I don't want to spoil too much, but trust me when I say the adventure these two characters go on is the highlight of this game. The interactions between the two characters will have you in stitches. Along the way, you will also meet with most of the familiar family of characters we know and love. Many of them are trying to stop you, in fact. The boss fights in the game are amazing. That very first fight against Cortex and the Mecha Bandicoot is still so iconic, and I absolutely adore the Dingodile fight that's later in the game. You will also meet some new characters that are a lot more significant and powerful than they lead on. The game has some real stakes. Twinsanity's controls feel tight and responsive, and I love the way the physics feel. Everything from Crash's jumping, sliding, spinning, and slamming feels awesome. The jumping in particular is so good, it helps mitigate minor frustrations like depth perception and the camera. It never felt like I couldn't make a jump, and when I didn't, it was because of something I did wrong. Cortex is also playable for the first time in a platforming experience, and even he feels great. He's equipped with his trusty ray gun, so long as you don't run out of ammo. Later in the game, you will meet Cortex's niece, Nina, who is equipped with a grapple hook for some neat wall bouncing and swinging sections that are also exciting to play. The best sections are when Crash and Cortex team up. Here you have downhill slalom sections where Crash uses Cortex as a snowboard, sections where Crash and Cortex just start beating the crap out of each other and form a ball to roll around the level, and other sections where Crash can throw Cortex to parts of the level to activate switches and clear out enemies with his ray gun. You can also use Cortex's big head as a hammer. I knew it was good for something. Twinsanity gets out of the warp room for the first time and instead goes for a more open world explorable experience. The game still has you following a linear path, but there is no excessive backtracking like I complained about in my Mind Over Mutant review, thankfully. There are also more opportunities to stop what you're doing and take a look around for puzzles, collectibles, and interesting details left by the developers. As you traverse the world, you will find 6 gems scattered in each area. Collecting each one will unlock something new in the unlockable section of the options menu. These unlockables contain things like concept art, cutscenes, storyboards, and cut content. With all these extra goodies, it's definitely worth going back and collecting all the gems. One criticism I have for the game is that outside of collecting the gems you missed, there is no endgame content to speak of after you complete the story. I know this is due to the time constraints the developer had, but after getting the very last gem, you are done your experience. Some endgame bosses, or having paths you could only access after you beat the game, would have been cool. Considering we blew through this game in 2 4-hour streams, the game is on the short side at around 8 hours, without going back and collecting all the gems. Like Crash of the Titans, I'm mostly okay with that, as I value a short experience that makes you feel good after completing it. I just feel like there's a missed opportunity here. The game's music is another defining feature of the game. The game's score was created by a group called Spiral Mouth, which uniquely mixes a cappella with pop, rock, and jazz elements, and it completely works with the zany aesthetic of the game. I challenge anyone to play the first level of the game and not start humming the theme. The music is just so interesting, and Spiral Mouth shows their range throughout the game. From the soothing island theme just mentioned, to the more hard rock boss tracks, to the downright eerie tracks in the Academy of Evil, Spiral Mouth did some serious flexing with this soundtrack. Now, I forgot to mention that Crash Tag Team Racing soundtrack was also composed by Spiral Mouth in the last video, but honestly this one is the better one of the two soundtracks. Overall, Twinsanity is a side-splitting experience that also dared to take Crash in a new direction. Traveler's Tales Oxford was created for the purpose of making this game, and I'm glad they abandoned the Warp Room for this adventure-style game. Twinsanity feels more like a journey into hilarity and madness instead of a destination to defeat the final boss. They tried something different, and I would love to see more Crash games like this with more side and endgame content available. It's an absolute travesty that this game undersold, and missed the mark with a lot of critics because from my standpoint, this game is phenomenal. Crash Twinsanity is going to receive my very first Series Dark Horse Award, because I will go to bat for this game 11 out of 10 times. Other times when I said games in the series were underrated, it was my opinion. But honestly, this game is a lot closer to being objectively underrated than any other game in the franchise. And for that, Crash Twinsanity sits in the runner-up spot for the podium at number 4. Only because these next 3 titles are revered so much by fans in the series. Number 3. Yo Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I'm really happy for you and I'm gonna let you finish, but Crash Team Racing is one of the best kart racers of all time. Of all time!
Boo! You suck!
Okay, whew, I got that out of my system. Which game is the best kart racer of all time is a matter of preference. But what's an absolute fact is that this 1999 Diddy Kong Racing inspired racer, that's right, not Mario Kart inspired, Diddy Kong Racing inspired kart racer, is in the contention for the top spot. It was absolute fire when it came out in 1999, and almost 20 years later, it's still immaculate. We played the game on stream together and I had a blast playing the game once again. Whether we were playing adventure mode, grinding out ridiculous oxide time trials, or just playing arcade mode, the game allowed for good times all around. People really hold this game in high regards, and I am sure that Activision is shuffling their developers around to make a remaster of this game happen. They would be leaving money on the table, mainly mine. Okay, I gushed over this game enough. Let's get into why it's so good and why it grabs the bronze trophy on this list. First, the gameplay is the best thing about this game. Who knew Naughty Dog had it in them? For their first time making a game that wasn't platforming, they made it perfect. The controls are tight and responsive to the point where you always feel in control of your movements. The sense of speed the game engine provides is also perfect. You always feel like you're moving fast, and you will find yourself on the edge of your seat sometimes when driving. The power sliding mechanic is a downright pleasure to use, because of how flexible the boost meter is. You can go for a maximum of 3 fully charged boosts for wider turns to maximize your speed, or you can shorten up the boost pattern to tackle sharper turns and sustain your momentum. The difference between good players and veterans is separated by this very mechanic. Knowing when to use both is going to make a significant change in your lap times. The 18 racetracks themselves are well designed. Each course is designed to be raced with a different strategy. Coco Park has wide open roads that allow you to be creative with your power sliding and race lines, while Tiger Temple will start out open and then funnel racers into a tunnel with flame hazards. Tiny Arena will teach you how to utilize the jump mechanic to get over mud and its unrelenting number of hills, while other tracks like Cortex Castle teach you how to power slide effectively. There's a good variety of tracks to race on. CTR's roster of characters has all your favorites and then some. You start off with 8 playable racers and can unlock 7 more for a grand total of 15 racers. My only real issue with the roster is that there's no way to unlock Oxide as a playable racer, not even if you beat all his time trial records. On the topic of adventure mode, wow is it fun. I love kart racers with adventure modes as I think they add so much value to their games. Without it, the game would have been a quick experience, but the mode gives you so much to do. You will race on courses multiple times to collect their trophies, CTR tokens, and time relics. Collecting 4 CTR tokens of the same color unlocks the corresponding gem cup, which will allow you to race for the color gem and unlock a character in the process. There are also 5 bosses to beat during your adventure, Oxide being the top dog to beat. There is so much enjoyment from this mode, and it is where you'll be spending most of your time playing. There is also an arcade mode, versus mode, and battle mode to play. As I mentioned in my Crash Bash review, CTR is one of those games that made the multi-tap famous. The game supports 4 players playing at the same time. Multiplayer is super fun in this game, and going split screen doesn't hurt the game's performance too badly. You can also play time trial mode to grind out your best lap times. Note that if you beat a race with a certain time, you will unlock Entropy's Ghost to race against. Beating his time will unlock another Ghost Racer, this time Oxide. Let me tell you, Oxide's lap times are no joke. Beating his times require mastery of the mechanics of the game. This will be your most difficult challenge, and it unfortunately doesn't unlock Oxide himself. Out of all the Crash games, I have the least bad things to say about this game. I mentioned Oxide not being playable as one, and a few missing characters like Brio and Koala Kong as another. In adventure mode, you only get to play as the original 8 characters even after you unlock the others, which is a small bummer. And the soundtrack is not quite as good as past work from Josh Mansell, in my opinion, but that's not going to stop you from humming most of the tunes as you are racing. These minor issues don't take away from the experience of the game. I'm actively trying to find bad things about this game, and I can't find anything else that I dislike. So if you love racing games, you need to play Crash Team Racing. Naughty Dog outdid themselves with this masterpiece. The feeling that I can only describe as exhilaration is exactly why this game gets my highest recommendations. It's fun solo or with friends, it's got great content, and it's got all the charm and charisma the series is known for. Crash Team Racing is a top shelf game that deserves to be number 1 on this list, but sits third because it's trumped by 2 very important games in the series. Number 2. At number 2, we have Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, which many people will tell you is the most important title in the series. In my personal opinion, they're right. That familiar and nostalgic Crash experience that became the gold standard for the series was set by this game. This is where Crash hit its stride. Even though Crash 2 wasn't the first or second or even third Crash game that I played, it still stands up on its own as a masterpiece. Firstly, Naughty Dog made the game DualShock compatible and changed the physics engine to create the tight platforming experience we know and love. The first Crash game made up for the control shortcoming by having lots of side-scrolling level design, but Crash 2 is able to give us more 3D level design thanks to the capabilities of the DualShock. The DualShock also created the signature Crash feel we know and love. While the original Crash expects you to hit the jump exactly as intended, Crash 2 lets you be a little creative as you can slide jump or spin jump instead of regular jumping to produce different results. The levels themselves support using these different types of jumps to encourage you to try and complete the levels in a different way. These new ways of traversing the levels is pivotal to getting good times in the time trials, which was added to Crash 2 in the Insane Trilogy. Secondly, the soundtrack for this game is just so good. Now let's be clear, I am not throwing any shade towards Crash 1's soundtrack, but I think we can all agree that many fans' favorite Crash Bandicoot jams can be rooted from this game. The Warp Room tune still gets me excited every time. Every time. You can pick out a bevy of tunes from this game as examples of Josh Mansell and the gang finding the right balance of level motif and creativity in these songs. They stay true to the level they were created for, but also introduce this electro rock fusion into their hands. The soundtrack really is one of the best parts of the game. Thirdly, the level design is well thought out like the last game, with more emphasis on 3D levels this time. The game features a lot more quote-unquote vehicle sections like the awesome polar runs, the jet ski board levels, and the less than awesome jetpack levels. Yeah. Overall, the levels are really amazing, with some of my favorites being Turtle Woods, Behaving, Unbearable, Hanging Out, and Cold Hard Crash. Collecting all the gems was a blast this time, as opposed to Crash 1 being more of a test of your skills. The color gems are hidden some unique places, with one of the gems being outright counterintuitive to the way you would normally collect gems. Some of the gems are going to require you to plan your route ahead of time to collect all the boxes. A few levels will require you to do some backtracking to get all the boxes, like Cold Hard Crash or Diggin' It. Death routes are in full force here too. Now admittedly, the last stretch of the game always starts to lose steam. I think the level ordering of the last warp room was not thought out very well. The last warp room contains 2 machinery levels that are similar to each other, and 3 jetpack sections if you include the pitifully easy Cortex last boss fight. Now I really hated the jetpack sections and how wonky they control, so if they were going to put those levels in the game, I don't think putting all of them in this final warp room was a good idea. They could have at least swapped one of them for Behaving, instead of shoving all 3 jetpack levels down our throats all at once. All this hardly ruins the overall experience, but it's a major criticism that did negatively impact my experience of the game. In fact, that's my only major criticism of the game. Even the problems brought on by the Insane Trilogy are the least egregious out of all 3 remastered games. The platforming in this game makes the round polygons issue much less noticeable. Bosses still suck, but they are an improvement over the last game, except for that final Cortex fight. That boss fight was trash, and I personally think it's one of the worst boss fights in the entire series. But make no mistake, Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back is incredible, and I would recommend newcomers to start the series here. This game is pure fun. The game made all the necessary improvements to the formula created in Crash 1 and set the quality level that later games would need to abide by. It's also withstood the aging process that has plagued a lot of PS1 games, and it stands up quite well beside its remastered version. Truly spectacular. And on our list, there's only one game in the series able to surpass it. Number 1. If Crash Bandicoot 2 is the gold standard of the series, then Warp is the cult of perfection. Warp just inches Crash 2 for the top spot on this list. I really mean inches because they are both deserving of the top spot. I had to make a head versus heart decision when it came to the top spot on this list. Crash 2 is the more revolutionary of the 2 titles because it set the groundwork for what a great Crash platformer should be. But I decided to go with my heart on this one, because Warp took Crash 2 and made it more grandiose. Naughty Dog went nuts with their newfound formula and incorporated leftover ideas from Crash 2 that were good enough to warrant their own game. Let's get into the review and give a bit of context. The signature Crash Bandicoot loop established in Crash 2 is back, but this time Crash has a few more tools in his arsenal. Crash will unlock a new ability after each Warp Room boss fight. In no particular order, you will unlock a double jump, a spin glide, a super body slam, speed shoes that make time relics a bit easier to handle, and a Wumpa bazooka that makes box collecting way more easier. This thing is freaking sweet. These new power-ups are welcome additions to the series and make for some unique level design. They do make the game a bit easier than previous iterations when it comes to gem collecting, but the time trials will present you the challenge you are looking for. The time relics were first introduced in this game as time is a big theme. They were tough then and they are still challenging now. Levels like High Time, Tomb Waiter, and Future Frenzy will require you to be seasoned at the game to get the gold, or higher if you are feeling ambitious. This feature was made available across all 3 games in the Insane trilogy. Naughty Dog downright outdid themselves with the level design. Thanks to entropy and the power of the Time Twister machine, Crash has to collect crystals in a variety of different time periods throughout history. There are medieval levels to gallivant through, Egyptian pyramids to explore, pirate ships to watch out for, and plenty more time periods. I feel like the developers had more freedom thanks to the time traveling and just went nuts with the level design. Warped also features way more vehicle sections with at least one in each warp room. The game includes motorcycles, jet skis, biplanes, and stages where you ride Coco's pet Purah. In the original Crash 3, this is where Coco makes her playable debut, though she was only playable in some of the vehicle sections like the aforementioned Purah stages, one of the biplane stages, and all of the jet ski stages. She is also the one who fights Engine in the 4th boss fight. In the Insane trilogy, Coco is able to play the platforming levels, and is another thing they made parody across the 3 games. I think this is where fans decide which game they prefer between Crash 2 and 3. I do agree that some of the vehicle controls feel a little bit stiff in the case of the motorcycle sections, and there are a lot of vehicle sections in this game while Crash 2 focuses more on platforming. However, I do feel like the vehicle sections are still great additions to the series and add variety. This game uses these sections as breaks from the traditional gameplay loop to create new and interesting scenarios, offering that said variety. I mentioned the Engine boss fight earlier, and that is a prime example of how much the vehicle sections enhance the experience, as that boss fight is widely considered to be one of the best boss fights in all of Crash. On that note, the game has some stellar boss fights. Finally! This game breaks the boss fight curse, giving us series standouts like Engine, Dingodile, and Cortex. I would place these 3 fights in the top 5 best Crash bosses of all time because of how well thought out they are. The Dingodile fight has the snarling hybrid protected by rows of crystals, which you will have to coax Dingodile to attack you to break them. You can risk getting roasted and clear the majority of the crystals for a guaranteed hit on Dingodile, or you can go for an early hit and risk not escaping the blast radius in time. This boss fight has always been my favorite. The Engine boss fight sends you up into space to fight Engine's mech and shoot down his weak points to take him down, twice. The duel is exhilarating and will require you to be sharp when getting shot at by his artillery. The Cortex boss fight is very clever in the sense that you're not just focusing on beating Cortex. Uka Uka and Aku Aku decided to have a brotherly throwdown in the middle of your boss fight. Not only do you have to watch out for Cortex's shenanigans, but you don't want to get caught in the crossfire of the dueling masks. While you are taking on your adversaries, Josh Mansell and crew are bumping some serious tunage in the background. The soundtrack in Warp is definitely their magnum opus. The tracks are so delightfully themed to the levels that they invigorate you while you're playing. I have always hailed the Future Frenzy / Gone Tomorrow level theme as the greatest piece of work the musical team has ever produced. The visceralness of the bass and drums, mixed with the futuristic synth line, just floored me when I got to that level for the first time. The Insane Trilogy version of the theme lost some of the oomph in translation, but still sounds good too. Because I am so nostalgic for the first game, I find the Insane Trilogy score to be a little underwhelming in some aspects. The transition from original to remaster also has a few issues, mainly in the vehicle sections. I can tolerate a bit of variance between the 2 versions, like in the case of the motorcycle sections. Those were done fairly well. But the jet ski sections feel really off. I think the developers try to incorporate some more realistic water and wave physics into the levels, but it threw the jet ski physics right off. The Engine fight in the Insane Trilogy is definitely not the definitive version of that level, as it feels easier than before. Like Crash 2, the round polygon issue is much less of an issue thanks to the trick jumping and power-ups available. By this point, if you've played the Insane Trilogy in order, you will be a master, and this issue becomes an afterthought. I may have my grievances with the Warped remaster, but that's because the game is my favorite game of all time and I'm being nitpicky. I still think newcomers should play the Insane Trilogy version of this game, but I would also encourage them to go back and check out the original later. I went with my heart and crowned Crash 3 Warped the #1 game in the entire Crash Bandicoot series. I hope this review shone a light on the mental arithmetic and reasoning behind my decision. Crash 2 and 3 are both so good that they could interchangeably take this spot. But I feel that Warped is the game that is the amalgamation of all the best parts of the Crash Bandicoot series. The incredible level design, the zany cast of characters, grooving and eclectic soundtrack, and ambition. If someone asked me, what is Crash Bandicoot? I would put a copy of Warped in their hands and tell them to play this. That is why Warped is the best game in the Crash Bandicoot series. To close out our retrospectacle celebration of the Crash Bandicoot series, I want to say that nostalgia is a powerful, powerful thing. And memories from a younger self can be a motivator behind the games that we like in a series and don't like. Now, with that said, as gamers and Crash fans, we can also discern whether a developer, in which the series has had many, has made a good game, and when they have made a good Crash game. And it goes back to the leveraging of the things I mentioned before. Thoughtful platforming and level design, a respect for the series' cast of characters, more interesting sound design like the work of Spyro Mouth and Josh Mansell, and the drive to provide fans with a complete experience. Should Activision and Vicarious Visions ever choose to proceed with a brand new Crash game in the future, I hope they consider these things that make up the series' core. The task is already Herculean, but over the last couple of years I have felt optimistic about the way Activision is handling its IPs, Crash and Spyro, and I encourage them to finish the remasters people are asking for, and then get out of their comfort zone. They already have the right teams on the roster with Vicarious Visions and Toys for Bob. Just keep in mind these things that make the series what it is, and they can do it. My name is Josh Rockstar, and I hope you liked this series review. I plan to make videos like this each time we complete a series of games. The Spyro series will be next after we complete the Reignited trilogy. Please let me know how you feel about this video and get down in the comment section. Let me know what order you would rank these 11 games. What did you agree or disagree about my assessment of the series, and how do you feel about these games? Let's get this conversation going. Thank you so much, and peace out.